Hello, I'm Rad. You can just call me Rad, of course, and I'm here with Jim. We are going to be commentating a wonderful Tunic randomizer race. We've already had our runners introduced. Jim, hello, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This game, I'm in love with this game. I'm in love with the randomizer. The races are always so exciting. I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we should probably give a spoiler warning from the top. Like, this game's been out for almost 2 years. But you know, if you're a big fan of Metroid Brainias or you like to go into these things blind, we're not gonna cover story content in the randomizer, but you're gonna see things that the game traffics in from a secrets and knowledge point of view. Even in this game, even game mechanics are sort of upgrades and items that you collect over time, and you can't really see those more than once. But if you don't care about that, or you've played Tunic, or you've seen somebody play Tunic, you're going to see this game, obviously, because it's a randomizer, turned inside out, upside down. Gosh, Jim, do you want to go over the basics of sort of the flow of the game of Tunic and how the randomizer changes that a little bit?
Yeah, so Tunic generally is divided into basically two parts. There's the early part of the game where you're kind of running around in the overworld trying to free the air, and then there's the second part of the game where you've now figured out that there is more to do besides just freeing the air and kind of finishing up all those extra side quests. What we're going to be doing here is almost entirely that first half of the game, but of course we'll have access to all of the tools and all of the neat things that you could have done from the beginning had you known you could do them. So the goal of the randomizer is to defeat the air or share your wisdom, and one of those is usually faster than the other. So we'll be seeing mostly running around in daytime, as it were, and everything should be accessible from that point.
Yeah, it's kind of inverted a little bit. This game kind of keeps secrets from you, and then you kind of the game kind of changes, phase shifts a little bit from a Zelda-like to a Souls-like to maybe more like Fez as we go on. But in the randomizer, it's a bit inverted. We already know all that stuff up front. We're just looking for the basics as we move through. So I wanted to introduce the runners real quick because I think our community is pretty small, and it's sort of a hybrid of speedrunners and rando players from other genres. I think Silent probably first of all, Silent made the randomizer mod, is responsible for like the majority of the content and how it's evolved over the past year and a half or however long. I don't even want to think about how long we've been working on and playing this. But then Scipio is the newest dev, I guess, on the project. Is responsible for the biggest feature that was released in version 2 of the mod, which is the entrance randomizer.
Also
So
contributing to the archipelago stuff.
of course, yes, I'm not as into the AP stuff, so like Jim, you'll have to fill me in there.
Hmm.
But yeah, so Silence kind of represents the speed side. That's where he and I have come from, and then Jim, you and Skippy have a lot more uh, randomizer experience. I think is fair to say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I know Scipio is also involved in dev for some of the other one of the other AP randomizers. I don't remember which one at this
Noida,
point,
I
but
think. I
Noita,
think
yeah,
it's Noida.
yep.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
both of us have some extensive randomizer experience, which is just really, really great to see what Tunic has done with the randomizer and how it's played out. Like, I'll go into more detail later, but there's some real,
Sure.
real cool differences between the way Tunic does things and the way some other randomizers do things.
So tonight we're going to be doing not all options. There are more extensive options that we can turn on in the randomizer, but just for a demonstration and a race, we're going to keep it manageable. All items will be randomized, and we can get into more of the minutia of the options as we get in. But we're not going to shuffle abilities, and we're not going to do the entrance rando tonight. For everybody's sake, but I believe the incentive was met for an enemy randomizer, so you'll
Hmm.
see that take place as part of the proceedings. So,
Yeah, you
okay,
are actually in for quite the treat here. I'm expecting to see some enemies that don't even appear in the base game. So Silent has done some just real incredible work digging through the files and finding some new stuff.
okay, I think we're ready then. I'll give the word to the racers. Are we ready, Jim?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. The timer I think was accidentally started in our race time room, so we're already off to a great
I was
start.
I
But
was wondering about that. Okay, okay, fine, we're fine.
okay. We'll pretend there's a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go.
We're probably also on a little bit of a delay since the
Yeah.
restream is coming through from the other side. But looks like they're off to a start. And right at the beginning, you're going to see some items appear out of thin air. This is using the power of the Holy Cross, which you may or may not be familiar with. We're not going to go into too much more detail than that. But this is, again, something that you could have done whenever you wanted had you known it existed in the TUNIC vanilla game. And there's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff in the TUNIC randomizer.
You see they have like some little orbs on the bottom right of the screen. That of course is our randomizer tracker. That's something I've been working on. Just it's my little contribution to the randomizer. Okay, I see Silent also got the party hat going. So we won't get into detail about that, but he has a little party hat. So it's a little weird. You start off with some of the weirder secret stuff, like you're just immediately getting into the mid-game's worth of knowledge. But the first checks we see are a teleport to the far shore to check the original location of the table of contents page, and then a sort of end-game secret. Okay, that we got both party hats now.
Excellent. So one of the things that the randomizer also introduces is an extensive hint system. You saw it flash up on the screen really quickly. East Forest is our runner's first steps. So that's some important item, either a piece of progression or a combat booster that should appear that is in Sphere 1, that's readily available. And then there's also ghost foxes around in the game that weren't in the game previously. And they also provide you with a little bit of flavor and a hint. It could be something like the location of an item. It could be something like what is located at a particularly difficult to get location. Or it could be just letting you know that a particular room is unimportant.
Jim, did you happen to catch what first steps were?
First steps was East Forest, which is actually really good for Scipio. I know he really likes routing in East Forest as part of his initial routing. As we can see, Silent is actually going towards the west side. He's going into the shop over here, picking up some extra items. I'm expecting Scipio to immediately go right instead of going left. And
yeah, it'll be interesting to see them diverge a bit. That's one of the benefits. Both of the locations that the runners are in right now are kind of sequence breaks, so to speak. Okay, interesting. Early attack relic. Okay,
that's really good. So one of the things that one of the things that is important to the randomizer is, of course, the ability to beat the game. You need to be able to kill the air. And the vanilla game expects you to do quite a lot of running around and picking up all the hero relics, and you already kind of maxed out on your items and all your progression stuff. So it's a real fight even at that point. In the randomizer, you could unlock the ability to fight the air with literally no weapons in hand. So there is a certain amount of things that we could hope that you would get by the time you're ready to fight the air, and the attack relic specifically is one of them, since that gives you a lot more damage.
Yeah, lets you carry through any upgrades you have for sure. So
this is exactly the kind of divergence I was hoping to see.
Yes, absolutely. East versus West right now. Different approaches. The openness of TUNIC lets you either dive straight for the hints or follow your heart, and it's not always like one is better than the other, which makes it a lot more fun. Just earlier on Silent Screen, you might have seen the physical properties of the game, where the early firebomb that he started with, he threw at some bushes and then transferred the fire to his fox body, and then transferred that fire over to another set of bushes to allow him to get access to a cave. So early on, the biggest obstacle to progression through the world is just bushes. Generally, the game expects you to acquire a sword to be able to get through. If you're clever, you can have enemies destroy the bushes for you, but that takes time. So those early bombs that we get with the codes in the opening crawl kind of allow you to pick and choose to sequence break into either the East Forest quicker or West Overworld. It does look like Silent has found that attack relic now too, and is closing in on Skippy into the East Forest.
Yeah, I think Silent took that hint to heart and is now heading in that direction. Even though this may not have been his first choice in terms of where to go, I think he generally likes the overworld loop on the west side of the overworld a little bit more. But East Forest first steps is hard to argue, and I think Scipio, in fact, has found what is likely his first step. Scipio found a stick sitting on top of the teleporter in the East Forest.
Yeah, so one of the features of the Rando mod that is not included in the base game is the concept of a sword progression. Um, in the base game, there's just a sword and there's a stick, and that's it. And but there are other swords in the game that may or may not be used by other entities in the base game that we thought would be fun to kind of add a little bit of a Zelda feel in that feeling of a progressively improving sword. There are 4 weapon attack or sword checks, and as you acquire them, you unlock progressively better swords. So this is not in other words, it's not specifically a stick pickup where they just happen to find the first.
Yeah, it is the first sword pickup, and if that
Right.
had been the third sword pickup, it would have been a very different sword.
Which hopefully we will see.
Hopefully, yeah. Scipio getting humorously blocked by one of the baby Slorms, trying to go down the ladder in the guardhouse and not being able to because there was an enemy directly underneath him. Fortunately, friendly fire is on for the enemies, so there are multiple ways to deal with enemies being in your way.
Yeah, and I believe, or at least I hope, that we are running the seeded variant of enemy rando. So sometimes enemy rando can help because the game is designed around enemies blocking your path or being annoying in some ways. So with the rando on, there are certain paths that become easier, certain sequence breaks that might just be free. But then there are notorious rooms where typically you'd see a lot of very basic enemies that can sometimes be replaced with almost impossibly difficult rooms without a lot of upgrades.
Case in point.
Yeah, exactly. The tables.
So, there is a quote-unquote enemy, but an animated coffee table that shows up in the librarian's tower. And of course it would be very, very funny if that was just randomly in the game somewhere. So we've included it into the enemy randomizer. And it turns out its hitbox is just enormous. You can push it out of the way very, very slowly, as we saw Silent doing on the left side. But it will happily block your path. It will stand in the way and just sit there.
As you can see, yes, Skippy just lured that skeleton with the sword over to cut the bushes for him, because the stick still cannot deal with that barrier, and that was a little bit easier than dealing with the table. While Silent was able to roll past the table, you get a dodge roll in this game that is very similar to like a Souls-like, small amount of iframes dodge roll, but it also is pretty useful in. Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, there we go.
Dangerous enemies for sure.
So I'm contractually obligated to state that on first death in this game, on every save, you are teleported to a sort of a narrative cutscene that is, I believe, implied to happen every time you die, but is only shown the first time. As speedrunners would know that if you come into this cutscene with a bomb equipped, even though you don't have access to your inventory, it still persists and you can skip about 30 seconds. Not as relevant in the randomizer, but you will only see that once.
Silent Destroyer putting himself in an interesting position. There is, again, the power of the Holy Cross allows you to generate chests almost out of nowhere in specific locations. The unfortunate problem with that is the chests have hitboxes also. So there is a somewhat notorious, not the most notorious, but a somewhat notorious chest that Silent Destroyer created without the power to get rid of bushes, would have actually caused him to be stuck in that location. Fortunately, he had a bomb left over, so he was able to burn down the bushes in the way. But it's a very, very dangerous thing that you kind of have to watch out for.
Yeah, that could have been rough. Oh, no Death Stone either, which we'll talk about hopefully at some point. Oh, a second death for Skippy. Oof.
Oh, enemy randomizer really punishing Scipio. Scipio, I don't know about odds-on favorite, but in a practice race between Silent and Scipio definitely won that one. So, kind of maybe a mental advantage going into this race, but 2 deaths is 2 deaths.
But he is going up against the dev of the mod himself, so I'm sure it can be intimidating at times as well, but we're glad both of them agreed to do this. I guess they're both devs at this point. I can't
yeah,
stack
kind of
it
hard to
too
argue
much.
one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
Enemy randomizer also affecting the guard captain at the end of East Forest, in this case turning it into a Lost Echo, which is an invisible enemy. Fortunately, you don't actually need to kill it to pass through, you just need to open the door. So Scipio got out of that one relatively light.
Going to the bells, let's talk about the bells. So
yeah, let's talk about the bells.
In the base game, there's a couple bells in a thinly veiled reference to Dark Souls, I think. Nothing's confirmed, but you never know. And when they govern access to the sealed temple, and normally that's where you gain some knowledge in the base game and kind of go on your way to the meat of the second act of the game. In the randomizer, we've kind of canonized that as the permanent location of the hint for what we call the laurels, or we don't call it that, that's what they are called, and the hyperdash in code, a traversal mechanic that is replaces your roll with an extremely quick sort of skipping, dashing, teleporting move, and not only does it speed up the game considerably, but it also unlocks, I would say, almost all areas and checks to the player's disposal. So it's like the turning point in any randomizer run is how fast can you find them, and the bells unlock the fastest way, other than just stumbling on them to acquire that. So
Yeah, I would say much like the vanilla game where nighttime leading into the cathedral and the laurels is the transition point. The laurels and the randomizer are also the inflection point where you're kind of changing the pace of the game and being more focused, which plays into the hint system a bit. The hero's grave statues that you saw Silent praying at to go look at the hero's grave will give you hints. There are several that give you progression hints, major progression items that could unblock parts of your game for you, and there are several that give you hints towards the keys, what we lovingly call the questagons, that are required in order to open up the air fight. And at least one of them requires the laurels to get to, but the other two are much easier to get to if you have the laurels, and at that point nothing is stopping you. So we usually see players make a mad dash for the extra pieces of information at that point and kind of run towards the air and towards the end of the game.
yeah, and ironically, though, the laurels are not required. Well, I guess in some seeds they may be required, but as just a matter of game logic, the keys are essentially all that is required to at least enter the final encounter. So it's very possible to end the randomizer in some seeds without them. So
Absolutely. So we see Silent being a little bit more thorough over in East Forest, just to kind of keep people updated on the state of the game as it is. Silent kind of going for some of the chests in Lower Forest that I don't think Scipio went for. Scipio kind of grabbed that stick and sort of got the heck out of there almost immediately. So Scipio's now back in the overworld, looking for some more information, presumably. I don't remember what the hero's grave hint was in the East Forest. He might be pursuing that, or he might have gotten a hint from a ghost fox, or he might just, be in the overworld, because the overworld is probably the next logical place to go. But there are a lot of options open to both of our runners, even with very little progression. The atoll is open, and probably the logical next step in terms of upwards difficulty. But you could also get to the quarry, you could also get to the swamp. There's a lot of options depending on what they want.
I would say from experience, there's a lot of options open to you, but you're very hesitant to explore them without upgrades. So you're kind of walking through the first sphere hoping, just praying that you get something, some kind of upgrade, some kind of trinket card that lets you walk faster in water, just anything that makes it a little bit easier, points you in one of those directions so that you don't feel too bad about picking the wrong one. When you have so many options open to you. I think right now the two players are just kind of filling in the missing spaces on each of their punch cards, so to speak. Silent is kind of finishing up East Forest, while Skippy is kind of finishing up the West Overworld that Silent went to before the forest.
I think Scipio's now a little bit ahead, although there's still stuff that Silent's gotten that Scipio hasn't. And if that was important, which a little hard to keep track, honestly, of how fast things move. But I don't think there was anything super important that Silence picked up that Scipio hasn't at this point.
Yeah, I think Oh yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Awesome. Sorry to interject here, but we do have a $10 donation from Totem Tastic. Says Wef Jebster Time Spinner HP incentive. For those of you not aware, Time Spinner is up next, and there is an incentive where every dollar donated takes one pip off the HP cap for our runner. Our runner is currently down to 128 HP allowed for the run. So if you want to make this a little more interesting, go ahead and get those donations in before the end of Tunic here. Let's make this a little more interesting for our runner. coming
Yeah, I
up.
think there's several Time Spinner runs coming up if you're a Time Spinner fan. There's an open race room that's coming up immediately after this run, and Wef's incredible disaster of a run is going to be tomorrow evening, I think.
Yeah, to appreciate the donation. Thank you very much. I just want to point out that even 15 minutes into the race, the two trackers in the bottom right corner of their screens look pretty close. So not a lot of divergence here, even though they
Kinda
made different
surprised.
decisions. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think they're chasing hints right now. I don't feel like they're making any kind of mental errors. Even with the death Skippy took, he kind of, rolled the dice on not checking every single check in East Forest, and yeah, they're pretty neck and neck right now. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think this is playing out pretty well for Scipio's plan. He hasn't made any gambles that seems like they haven't paid off at this point. And finding a sword is a great next step.
Yes, that's sword progression number 2. Finally, a real weapon. No more bushes will be a problem. See, this is a good example. This maze room is, say, a 20 to 30 second room without the laurels and maybe 5 seconds in game time with it. So this is one of those examples of like technically available to me, but I don't know if I would ever go in there willingly before I get the laurels if I don't have to. So it's starting to run a little dry on easy, convenient pickups. Okay.
Ooh, the lantern on Silent Side. Okay, so this is playing into the bells that we were talking about earlier. So, the lantern is the intended way to get into West Garden and get access to the West Bell. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Silent kind of gunning for the Dark Tomb now in order to get into West Garden, in order to ring that second bell and get access to that Laurel's hint.
Yeah, that's where he found the lantern is a skip, it is a check that is fairly okay. Well, I was going to say that check is fairly inconvenient. Where Scipio just found the gun is also one of those rooms that is like pretty accessible, but just enough out of the way where it feels like one you might round off if you're trying to just hit the area as quickly as possible.
But that sure is a gun. That's going to be extremely helpful when you're currently armed with only a stick. Okay, so Scipio actually deciding to go down to Atoll with sword in hand, sword and gun, which means that it's going to be a long time before Scipio finds that lantern.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how necessary it is because the lantern was accessible early. There's a better chance that dark areas will be necessary to traverse to get the keys that we're looking for. Not guaranteed, but because it was so early, it's possible. It's a mind game thing, I think, at this point. Atoll is an interesting choice. So this area, this little beach paradise, paradise may not be the right word, but work with me, it is full of checks, but they're not easy to get to. There's a lot of enemies that are going to stop your progress throughout. The area features 4 fuses that must be lit in the 4 corners of a mostly square area. And once you light those fuses, you can get access to the library where there are just like a pool of checks. Oh, all right. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, Atoll absolutely paying off for Scipio. So Scipio has found the 3rd sword in our sword progression chain. This is I know there was a name. I think it's just the librarian sword, but it is the sword wielded by the librarian, the boss at the upper end of the library that you can access here through the Atoll. So this is much longer reach than the base sword. So it has a practical benefit in addition to just looking really cool. And also provides an intrinsic attack upgrade, as if they had gotten one more attack offering.
Right. It's definitely a confidence booster, I'd say. I don't think it changes the reality much, but it's you're just kind of like, okay, I'm getting there, right? Like one more,
this doesn't make anything more accessible than it was before, but it certainly makes combat easier. And if combat was what was stopping you from getting from one place to another, then this is going to go a long way toward making that easier.
And just to like point that out, we think of Silent as having found a progression item in the lantern, but Silent still only has the stick.
That's true.
So
but, I think Dark Tomb's not going to be too bad.
Yeah.
Doing stick only in Dark Tomb is, I think, pretty typical from a speedrun perspective.
Yeah, that's worth pointing out, I guess, is if you have a decent bit of experience with a few categories in Tunic, specifically our restricted category.
Oh, Centipede.
That's okay. You know what? Let's see. This game is jam-packed with stuff. Okay, we're gonna try our best to not just cut off in the middle of explanations, but I'm gonna be guilty of it a number of times.
Go do your thing. We'll talk about Centipede afterwards.
So, the lantern helps you see, but it doesn't actually enable anything. There's no like trigger that it triggers that allows you to get through the area. So we built the logic for the randomizer to essentially require the lantern, because we figured lanternless strats are a fairly high level of speedrun tech, but technically, you don't need the lantern to get through the Dark Tomb or the Dark Cave. Anyway, Centipede.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was mentioning earlier, Silent's done with the enemy randomizer, is digging through some of the enemies that don't normally appear in the vanilla game. Enemies that were beta versions of enemies, or enemies that were just not included for whatever reason. And the Centipede is one of those. You saw it scurrying around at the top of the Frog's Domain entrance. That thing is a fast mover and has an exploding head. I'll be honest with you, I have never fought one myself. I've only seen them running around and been noped out is what happened to me. So I'm really hoping we see our friends here run into some big disasters of enemies.
Yeah, and it was pretty recently discovered too. It's so funny how we find some of this stuff. I believe it was found only because Silent added some code to allow the scavenger enemies that normally throw firecrackers or just regular bombs to remix the bombs that they throw. So sometimes they can throw ice bombs now, sometimes they can throw fire bombs. And he did that by enabling some code that just said, I don't know, whatever bombs are in the pool, just randomly pick one. And what we didn't expect was that there was a fourth bomb in the pool on some scenes, and it turned out to be the Centipede's head. And we were like, what is this? What is this head? And it turns out that the Centipede, when it is killed, its head sticks around for a minute and explodes like a little treat afterwards. And while it is in that mode, it is considered a bomb type. And so we kind of accidentally reverse engineered the unreleased Centipede because its head was a bomb type.
Yep. Beta Knight over there on Scipio's side as well. Ooh, and a stamina hero relic. So we haven't talked about the hero relics much, the upgrade system for this game. So maybe this is a good time to talk about that. So this works the same way that it does in the vanilla game. There's 6 different kinds of stats that you can boost. There's the HP, stamina, and MP that you can see in the bottom left corner. And there's also attack, defense, and the healing power of your potion. All of these can be upgraded individually, but when you are a ghost, which occurs when you're in the far shore and when you're fighting the air, all of those upgrades are reduced back to your base values unless you found the hero relic to empower that stat. You can see in the bottom right, the lower 2 rows are the offerings that our runners have found, the relic upgrades. That was the orb for Silent Destroyer? Okay, we'll come back to that also.
Yeah, so what? We have
the offerings in the bottom right corners, and then any of those that are gold, that runner has found the hero relic version of that offering, which increases the stats as well as unlocking that stat for during the air fight. Okay, so grappling, go ahead.
Yeah, it is very funny that Silent has the grapple and no sword, and has just died.
Oh.
That's unfortunate. So the grapple is... It depends on the order in which you can collect the upgrades, right? If you get the laurels early, the grapple is not very useful. If you get it before laurels, it can be vital to just quicker movement, less annoying traversal through some areas, and in some cases, both using speedrun tricks and not, it may be your only way into certain areas. In fact, without the orb, there is no way to enter the ziggurat in the quarry, because one of the fuses required to power the door that opens that area is just slightly higher in elevation. And because of the way the laurels like detect where you can dash from any given location, there's never a time where you can get over there. So the orb is the key to the ziggurat, but it's hard to say what kind of impact it will have on the randomizer. It will definitely unlock new areas, but time will tell. Just like the lantern, if it will have a big impact or not.
Yeah, and like you were saying before, Silent has found a lot of progression, a lot of ways to unlock new checks, a lot of things that can let him go to places he couldn't go before. But Scipio has found all of the combat upgrades. Scipio is a lot better positioned to fight off some of these enemies. Although, is that a wand on
Yeah,
Silent's
where did
side?
the wand come
Where did
from?
Okay, that could mean that we see a major skip, which is actually one of the coolest things, one of the coolest tricks that I learned about that is not used in the speedrun. We'll see if Silent goes for it, but you can use that wand to trigger the West Bell from afar, from one of the cliff areas in the overworld, and that completely circumvents the need to go to West Garden solely for the Laurel's clue. It looks like Silent's going to go through Dark Tomb anyway.
Yeah, I think so. He's well positioned to do it the intended way.
Absolutely, and it's a lot of checks on the way, so it's not like he's missing out.
That's true. Yeah, the Dark Tomb is one of those areas that you kind of forget about it. It's not a lot. It's not enough checks to lure you away from somewhere that seems more obvious, but it's also where sneaky items just happen to chill out sometimes. So, not a bad move to get through here, even if he doesn't follow all the way through to West Garden. The thing about West Garden is it's also a rich area in checks that are locked just slightly behind Laurel's movement. So you can clear a lot of checks in West Garden, and it gets you the vanilla access to the second bell. But there's actually no benefit in defeating the boss, other than that it if you don't have laurels, it gates access to the bell. There's no checks behind the boss or anything, and there are several checks in West Garden that you'd have to return to with the laurels. So it's just another example of one of those areas that, like, it's a good area to go to if you've got access to it, but man, you want to have laurels before you go there.
Absolutely. Yeah, just being forced to abandon checks like that never feels good, especially when it seems like they could be important. One of the things that the randomizer does really well, which is the thing that I'm very happy that Silent managed to fix this, is it shows you in some cases what you're missing out on. Chests could be a different color depending on the contents. If an item is freestanding, you'll see the actual, like, visibly what the item is instead of what it was at the base game. So you can get a little bit of information just by knowing where an item is that you might not have otherwise. And in places, especially in West Garden, there's a couple of places where you can kind of see, oh, this item is difficult to get to, but I can see that it's a thing I don't care about, or I can see that it's a thing I definitely care about, and thus I know I'll need to go back for it.
I thought we were about to see a demonstration of the second bell skip from Silent here, but he reversed course and ran to the right. I wonder what he's after now.
He's doing it the easy way. He's doing it from the far side. So there's two places where you can do the bell skip from. One is directly above Dark Tomb. There's like a little ledge there. That's oh yeah, here we go. There's a little ledge there, but the angle is weird. You have to be very careful about the angle. But from here, what? Oh, there's just a key here. How nice.
All right, I think we can safely say Silent has found some advantages here. It sounds like the wand and the orb were in beneath the well. So until Skippy visits that, and considering that the red key is now orb locked, that's one check I didn't really mention and didn't think about, but that is, even with laurels, that check is not accessible either. So
yeah, that is absolutely only grappling orb. So Silent, there's the audio trigger for hitting the bell. You can hear that dong all the way from across the overworld. They did it again. So now we know where the laurels are, and it is, of course, in a place that neither of our runners have gone to. But it is a place that is immediately accessible.
So there's a meme in this race that top of the mountain is like a poetic, I guess, place for the laurels in the randomizer, but it is cliche, let's say, and I think the joke has become it might just be there every time, no matter how cliche we say it is. So it's a good double or triple head fake there.
Amazing. So the top of the mountain is sort of the ultimate end game location for the vanilla game. It requires a lot of running around and putting together clues. Of course, we as speedrunners and randomizer players already have done all of the hard work, so we know all of the answers. So the top of the mountain is available immediately, but it still takes a little bit of legwork. It is a difficult to execute way of obtaining the item in that location. And it's very, yeah, I'll say very out of the way. So unless you have a reason to go there, or you've kind of exhausted a lot of your other opportunities, it's not a place you're just going to gun for. It's not a place you're going to head towards immediately.
It's definitely one of those checks that if you're playing casually and you're playing the odds, you are going to skip, like 99% of the time. There are two checks in the mountain. One is before the door and one is after. The before is... it's on the way. It's something, when there's an item there, you feel good that you went and you thought to check it. Literally 99% of the time when you check the top of the mountain, you're going to feel like you just wasted 2 minutes. So
That's about right. On the plus side, though, you do get that beautiful jingle for opening the door.
For sure.
I haven't said it yet, but I will say it as many times as is necessary. The sound design for Tunic is just incredible. Lifeformed and Janice Kwan and Kevin Ragami all did just an amazing job working on all of the various bits and pieces. And the reward, I would say, for opening the top of the mountain is less the item and more the jingle.
Oh yeah, it's the capstone to the casual experience for sure. I guess it's a good time to point out while we wait for, it looks like Silent's going to type this code in, which is going to take him about 20-30 seconds, even at max speed. This game, when you look at the final package, even without the randomizer, it looks so polished. It looks like, it's maybe small in scope, but some kind of large indie team. No, this was principally about 6 people, even including all of the audio staff. So we mentioned the composers and the audio director. Andrew Schuldeis is the principal programmer, game designer, did all of the visuals, only had a late addition to the team to come in and kind of clean up areas and flesh them out with style and detail. A producer in Felix Kramer, and who am I forgetting? Of course, the artists. Aurahack did the key art that you see in the center of the screen for the box art, and then Mako did the illustrations that you see in the manual, of which we probably won't see for more than a few frames throughout the randomizer experience.
So Scipio has decided that lanterns are for suckers and has gone into Dark Tomb. Scipio, notably still lacking in all of the progression items that Silent has found, but also because of their divergences is way better equipped to deal with all of the enemies here. So even with no visibility, Scipio's not really having too hard a time with it. Silent now has turned the corner, as it were, and I'm not sure what he's doing on this screen.
I'm not sure. Yeah, he's maybe contemplating what to do next.
Thinking about his life choices.
Yeah, he's right outside the monastery, which contains probably the easiest to get hint for the hexagons. Those, while they are remixed, like you don't know specifically where the red, green, and blue hints are for the hexagons. We do know that the monastery, the library, and the swamp contain hexagon hints generally. So this one is a no-brainer. There's only one check in this room, so he's probably beelining it to see if it's one of the 2 keys that he does not have right now.
We also saw that Silent checked the hero's grave. So there might very well be a specific item that he wants out of the hero's grave. So this might be the first place he's going to in order to get that. That is a thing that you need the laurels in order to get to. But I didn't quite see everything that was in the hero's grave, but I don't think there was anything particularly relevant there.
And
world.
He lucked out. So he got the one hint for the key that he already has. So that's how it goes sometimes. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think there was anything major in the hero's grave.
I think I saw a fairy and some money, and I think there was either a card or a page. It can be hard to tell the difference with the lighting there. Scipio having a rough time with the spike room in the Dark Tomb. Maybe this is Yeah, Scipio coming to that conclusion as well. Maybe
Yeah.
this is not where he wants to be spending his time.
I'm hoping we see an attempt at Beneath the Well, but it's tough. It's tough to want to go in there when you don't have laurels, because the laurels movement through that area is probably 3 or 4 times faster than without it.
Yeah, absolutely. Beneath the Well is one of those places that is accessible early on. This is actually an area where the logic differs a bit between the Archipelago version of the game and the standalone version of the game. The standalone version of the game doesn't take combat into account at all. It takes into account progression, so stuff like needing the grappling or needing the laurels to get to specific checks, but it doesn't think about the amount of fighting you'll need to do in order to get there. Whereas the Archipelago version of the game, which may actually be what Scipio is more used to at this point, has some extra checks in there, kind of requiring a weapon in order to put checks beneath the well, or requiring, I think, a sword and maybe something else before it'll put progression into Corey, for example. So it might be that Scipio is delaying on going to some of these places with that in mind, under the expectation that stuff in there is a later sphere, whereas in the standalone version of the game, it's not. It's all Sphere 1 still.
It does look like he's going to be making a little bit of a comeback here, or at least catching up to what Silent found in here. As long as he devotes, we should see him exit this zone with both the orb and the wand. And my guess is that he will probably catch up in similar ways, finding that hint after cheesing the bell, etc.
And Silent, once again, being a little bit more thorough. He got the hexagon clue from the monastery and decided, well, as long as I'm here, I might as well open some chests. So he's kind of clearing the quarry. Whereas it would be just as easy to get your clue and get out, right? There's 2 other places that you could go to get clues, and depending on what you're looking for, maybe he's maybe he's just lamenting the fact that he only has a stick in hand. Because honestly, I wouldn't want to fight the air stick only.
You know, it is a little deja vu. In our last showcase, that's, I think, exactly the choice that was presented to me. I could have rushed hints, but I decided, no, I have laurels. I can clear all of Corey. That's a good idea. And it turned out to be not a good idea. So
Right?
it is a gamble for sure.
Absolutely, and especially because we know that Scipio's found a bunch of the kind of weaponry and offense-related stuff that Silent, assuming Silent is looking for that stuff, the stuff that Silent is looking for, we know that it's not here. We know it's in the overworld and in the atoll, which actually makes me wonder, maybe there was a clue for the atoll. Maybe the did you see where the hero's path clue was off of the East Forest?
I did
grave?
not. I did not.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was maybe Scipio's reason for heading to the atoll, or maybe Silent's reason for heading to Beneath the Well in the first place.
Yeah, it would not surprise me. Skippy is working on features related to those hints in development right now for our next version, so that may be on his mind. I wouldn't be surprised if he was taking those a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, the hint system, honestly, I'm really happy that the hint system exists, and if we're working on improvements to that sounds great.
Oh yeah, I don't know what I should talk about. You know what I mean? But it's nothing major, but it's attention to detail. Like, you know, I think everybody, I would say almost all of the speedrunners I've interacted with, and the randomizer players, and everybody who gives back to this community, you know, it's all about kind of a passionate love for this game, and it's always been a really good time, really good community. You know, the speedruns can get sweaty, of course. Some of the tricks can get pretty difficult, but they all cross-pollinate. Knowing the speedrun tech can increase your fun and accessibility for different pieces of the randomizer, just like any other game.
Oh, the Silent powering the fuses was like, is Silent going to the ziggurat? Are we seeing an unprompted ziggurat check? No, he's powering up the teleporter.
Yeah, that's a really convenient teleporter. That's in some of the speedrun categories that need to move around. Oh, what did he find?
He found the sword. So we now know where all
Okay.
4 swords are. The
Let's
fourth
go.
sword that Scipio is missing is at the far shore, and his laurels game.
Yeah, so there are a couple, like the Atoll save, the Corey save, and a save in the Siege Engine room, which we haven't talked about and probably won't, maybe won't, we'll see, are very convenient because you can death warp back to them or use an item to go back to your last save that we haven't seen yet. And you're right next to a teleporter, so essentially you're sort of anchoring at a save that lets you get anywhere you want at a moment's notice. Especially useful if you are chasing hints.
Man, Silent's Thurn is actually going to pay off for him here. We know that there's a bunch of really cool combat stuff in the atoll. So even though he might be here mostly for the hint in the library, full clearing Frog's domain, getting the extra chests in the atoll is actually going to be worthwhile for him.
There you go. Both pulling the red hex without the red hint. So just like that. Okay. I'm surprised that Skippy is pulling back into like a reasonable position so quickly. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it again shows. I think Scipio does have a really good handle on randomizers in general, and what makes fast in a randomizer versus what makes fast from a speedrun sense, which is maybe where Silent has a bit of an advantage. So Skippy, like, kind of finding his progression tools now. He doesn't need too much more in the way of combat. He's got the attack relic, he's got the level 3 sword, and he's a competent player, very competent player. Like, he has most of the tools that he would need in order to fight the air. So if he has the things he needs, then, you know, going straight for the air, just gunning straight for the clues, gunning for all the information that he needs, like, that's absolutely a reasonable decision for him to make at this point. And it's the decision I'd expect him to make, honestly.
Yeah, I want to point something out that's kind of funny to me. So early at the very start of the run, say in the first 5 minutes, they both pulled a check for Aura's gem, which is a reference to the key art that you see in the center of the screen. There was a gem drawn on the sword, or the shield, excuse me. And so it's a reference to the artist. When you equip that trinket, a little gem appears on your shield, if you have the shield, which I don't think either player does right now. And that increases your parry window. And that is one of my favorite trinkets to find in the randomizer, because I know that it means if I don't find all the key items I need to do like a speedrun cheese on the air, I have a lot more options at my disposal for reflecting projectiles or engaging in some of the, you know, more Souls-like combat. Right now, Silent is pretty well equipped to fight. I mean, I guess they both are really, but neither of them have the dagger, which is like a prime component to do a freeze cheese. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. That sounds pretty good though. I like that.
The freeze cheese.
Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see if the dagger is accessible or just kind of shows up somewhere before the air fight, or if they are both doomed to fight vanilla.
Oh, we actually have a dash stone for Silent.
Okay.
I can't believe we didn't see this come up.
Yeah, I did not see that either.
All right, well, let's talk about it now. So you can see him right now. It acts kind of like a homeward bone from Dark Souls. It'll take you to the most recent checkpoint that you have checked in at. And the name of the item comes from the item art itself. It is a hexagonal stone with the word Dath written on it in TUNIC, in the runic language of TUNIC. And the story goes that it was probably going to be an item that allowed you to use the dash, much like the Hero's Laurels do. So the assumption is it is a misspelling of dash rather than an intentional spelling of dath.
Correct. Yes, it was made essentially for an E3 demo style version of the game, and it was originally going to enable, I believe, run and roll, which turned out to not be fun at all. So it was quickly removed from early versions of the game, but the manual art features it heavily in the early beta versions. And so yeah, we think it was probably just a mistake in transcription, but we have enshrined someone's unfortunate mistake forever remembering the consequences of attention to detail.
Yeah, this is what happens when you leave beta art in the game. Somebody like Silent digs it out and puts it in the randomizer.
Yep.
So we now see Scipio falling in Silent's shoes, about 10-something minutes behind Silent's original route here into the monastery. So we're gonna see Scipio getting that red hexagon clue that he already knows the location of. So that's not particularly useful. But I'm expecting Scipio to the next easiest hit to get is going to be the cathedral. Silent decided to go for the atoll for reasons, and it's going to pay off because he's going to want all of the equipment that he's going to find here. but the easiest one to get to is definitely going to be the statue in front of the cathedral, because the dash, the laurels kind of allows you to take the backwards route, come in from the nominal exit to the swamp, and get access to that hero's grave statue immediately.
Yeah, there are a lot of checks. I don't know how many fuses Skippy powered. I do know he's powered some. So if he has to revisit that library hint, he's at least partially on the way there. But the allure, I think, of going to the library, despite how long it takes to access it in Atoll, is that there's just so many checks and just a few rooms there. Doesn't always pay off, but I think just as that dopamine hit or something, right? Like, you know that when you get in there, there's a room. I think there are 4 chests and 3 free-floating items in just one room. So
one thing I've discovered is there is a piece of vanilla functionality that is maybe unexpected, but there is a teleporter in the library. And if for whatever reason you didn't access that teleporter, you didn't turn it on before fighting the air in the vanilla game, then the transition to night automatically turns that on, because there's no way to get back into the library while the game is in its night mode. So it turns it on so you have access to that area. But that means that if you fight the air in the randomizer and you fail, it does that transition while staying in day mode. So you don't have to get into the library at all in order to get into that room. You just have to lose the air fight once.
That's interesting. That's usually not an optimal way to go about that, right? Like, if you can you have to have all 3 keys to get into the air fight. So, it's so close to being useful.
Right? It's so close.
Yeah.
Mostly what I found is if the spirit of hubris has overtaken me and I think I can handle the air fight when I can. At least that's 7 free checks.
There are instances where you can have the keys early, but be missing something like the attack relic, or be looking for the orange peril ring, or some other item to make, or the dagger, right? Something that you're ready to fight the air, but you're just weak. You're too weak. I mean, that's kind of one of the great equalizers of this randomizer, is you can get extremely lucky, or early laurels. All 3 keys could be in the first 3 checks, but you still have to be able to access the temple. And even if you use speedrun tricks to glitch into the temple, you still have to beat the air, and there's sort of a soft floor there. Even the most experienced players are not going to be able to just walk right into the final battle and beat it. They're just not cheese tech for having no items. So I could see it being very useful in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. So Silent has picked up his green Questagon clue, which is the patrol cave, which actually I'm kind of surprised that neither of our runners have already gone there. That is a very, very much sort of on the path in the overworld loop.
Yeah, it's one I usually check. I try to open that shortcut back to the base overworld save early. I don't know if it's very smart, but that's just one I like to do, and the patrol cave is usually on the way. So yeah, that's a little surprising.
Yeah.
But neither has seen or has a hint of the blue.
Nope.
And both are going to have very quick access to it.
Yeah, the hint for sure is going to be very freely accessible once they decide to start heading toward the swamp. Scipio choosing to come back to the atoll, I guess, because it was already in progress and he had a lot of the fuses already down. So he should have very quick access to the library, which will put him almost even with Silent, which is kind of amazing with the divergences.
He's going into Frog's domain. He's already been there. I wonder what he's going down for.
Yeah, there might have been like a couple of checks in the back because he didn't have the grapple or the laurels the first time he came through here. So there's definitely a couple of checks that he missed. Maybe he's banking on them being important.
Yeah, I wonder, there's got to be something motivating that more. Like, I wonder if he picked up a hint that he feels like has not been fulfilled yet.
Maybe, yeah. It can't just be a random gamble because he's definitely left a bunch of checks behind in other places. But we're now going to see Silent get that green Questagon since he has the clue for it. And probably going to the cathedral statue after that, but far be it from me to declare I know what goes on in the mind of Silent Destroyer.
Yeah, it's really interesting that they are following a pretty similar route here. It's very interesting. It's not something I've seen in a race thus far.
Yeah, they were in so okay. So they started off kind of relatively close to each other. Like Silent went left a little bit, and then they both ended up in East Forest. But since then, they've been hugely divergent. And then finding the Laurels was the thing that put them both back on the same track.
Yeah.
And they've spent a lot of time kind of back and forth, right? Like Silent ahead in progression, Scipio ahead in other items, and now they've kind of merged. They've both sort of picked up the progression that the other one has. So Silent is sitting on 3 swords, and he hasn't picked up the gun yet. I don't remember exactly where that was, but he's got that hero relic, or the attack relic for the hero relic for attack for the air fight.
Yes.
God. So they're in a fairly similar position in terms of their combat readiness and in terms of their progression. So it's kind of down to the wire here. And
Yeah.
Silent is moving just that little bit, not faster so much, but with that little bit of extra time at the start, considering that he found the Laurels so much earlier.
It'll be interesting to see. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say we got a quick second to plug some incentives.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. I think we have about 40 minutes left in this run, roughly.
Probably
I think
less
it's
than that at this point.
yeah,
Probably
it's gonna be
closer
less
to
than that.
15, 20?
So with that being said, I did want to go ahead and plug some of the incentives we have coming up for Time Spinner. We do have that incentive to restrict the HP cap for our runner. So if you want to go ahead and get those donations in by the end of Tunic, we can make that Time Spinner run a little bit more spicy, especially on these chilly nights. And also we have a bid war for the Binding of Isaac coming up after Time Spinner. Bid war is choose the character. Right now in the lead with $44 is The Lost, but we have Isaac, Maggie, Cain, Judas, Eve, Samson, Azazel, Lazarus, Eden, Lilith, Keeper, The Forgotten, and Bethany as options as well for the runner to play as. So if you want to see your favorite character in the Binding of Isaac Rebirth, get those donations in now by the end of Time Spinner. And just to sweeten the pot for everybody a little bit, so if you don't feel like you want to part with your money quite yet, $25 minimum donation will get you in to win a $50 Steam gift card just in time for holidays. So if Santa is not going to get you that Steam wishlist item you want, we can help move those funds along and get that going for you.
Well, back into the action, we actually missed some interesting things. So Silent found his clue for the next Questagon, and it's in the Cathedral, which is definitely an end game kind of location. Some hard enemies in there, and a little bit difficult to get to. But it is kind of in the same general location as the Hint, right? Already in the swamp, so not too far away from here. Scipio right on his heels with the same information in hand.
The only difference really is Silence like maybe a little bit farther into the swamp and already has the green hexagon.
Oh,
did
Scipio
drop
hasn't gotten
by.
the patrol cape yet. Okay.
Right, yeah. However, neither of them have like a perfect cheese setup for the air. So we could see this coming down to who makes the most mistakes in the final battle
that
here.
fight is no joke, even in the randomizer. Ooh, RTSR. Okay. Wow. I can't believe that 4 skulls was worth it. I was all set to be like, I can't believe Silent is wasting his time playing mini golf in the swamp, and then he gets the orange peril ring, the boosted attack damage when you're low on health, and that is such a game changer if you're familiar with using it. If you're comfortable being at that low level of health while doing fighting, it's such a big deal.
Yeah, it's gonna matter. It's gonna make the difference if they find the dagger. It's gonna be difficult to pull off without, or with some. You know, you could use some other techniques. You can use a lure. It's a little more dangerous, but I will say before we get off the topic, I'm pretty impressed with how Skippy has recognized that he's probably a little behind. When he went into the library, he very specifically skipped any checks that were obviously not going to be helpful. So only opening the chests in the library, skipping all of the vases, quickly getting out of there. He's closing ground like without knowing what's happening with Silent, making pretty intelligent decisions here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Kind of going back to that point of having some information about what the checks are, just by virtue of seeing the chest or seeing the location that they're in. And if you are in a particularly focused kind of, I don't want to say mood, but rude, I guess.
Do you see what's happening here? They're both unable to. So to get into the cathedral, you can cheese your way in, which typically just uses the dagger, the same cheese we're talking about with the final boss, or you need to power this this fuse. And it looks like neither of them are wanting to give up a lure, so they're both stuck trying to clear the enemy rando here. It looks like Silent got away just slightly quicker.
Yeah, very slightly quicker. I love that the name for that enemy in the game, in the code, is Beef Boy.
Correct.
These enemies are
Correct.
disasters. But yeah,
Yes.
enemy randomizer doing enemy randomizer things and throwing up a fairly major challenge in the way of powering that fuse.
And look at this, Skippy goes right for the cathedral where Silent is still dutifully clearing the checks in the swamp, hoping probably for a dagger or more attack or something.
Mm-hmm. And showing off that moonlit bridge. As long as it's lit, he's going to take advantage of it.
Yep, that is new for version 2. This bridge was the is the way typically you leave, or no, I guess it's normally only visible at night, which made it almost impossible to activate that ladder shortcut when we forced the time to day. So that was added in the most recent update to always give you access to that shortcut.
But yeah, silent.
Clarification.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I mistakenly listed one of the incentive time spinners actually in this marathon 3 times. So the next time spinner race that's going to be happening, that is taking place tonight, the bid war is not for the HP cap. That is for Saturday's time spinner run. Tonight's time spinner run, you have the option to ban an orb of your choice. So if you want to go ahead and get those donations in by the end of TUNIC and ban an orb from time spinners, now is your moment. Thanks, guys.
You see the gun there. Skippy's clearing the mobs chasing him through the cathedral. That's probably where it shines the most. And I think he picked that up from the... Okay, there we go.
Here we go.
Interesting. That's good. That's not an easy check to get. We'll see how
really
Silent
odd.
deals with that. They both do have the librarian sword right now, so he at least has that. Skippy rushing for the patrol cave here. This is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be really, really close. And it's entirely down to Silent kind of being a little bit more thorough. Like, that helped him out getting the tools that he needed in the ATOL, but it's kind of punishing him here, right? Taking a little bit more time to get some of these extra checks. And unless they make the difference between, like, unless he finds the dagger or something, like, I think this could easily cost him the race.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think Skippy has played very well in the mid game here to catch up to just like unfortunate guesses early, but both of them are still going to run headfirst into that air fight without the dagger.
Yeah, that's going to be it's going to be honestly a treat. I'm really excited to see what their strategies are and how they approach that air fight, because the air fight is something that I've been struggling with.
You can see there's even a speedrun trick there to put all 3 keys in at the same time, but again, because they have no dagger. I hesitate to talk about it, but let's say there's something, if you have the dagger and the wand, there's something you can do that has been the cause of some controversy as the game has evolved and been updated over the years. The dev actually put an affordance to allow us to essentially downpatch an old mistake in version 1 of TUNIC. Live. There's a code you can type in to make it do version 1 mechanics for 80 seconds. And are we?
I think Scipio save and quit in order to get somewhere.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, sometimes the mod is doing a lot of mixing in the background, so we just get a little black screen there. So okay, cool, got it. Yeah, so instead, you see another affordance that the wonderful devs have provided our community. You used to have to sit through a 30-second cutscene every time you put a key in, and if you have speedrun mode on, you can just pause and quit and continue and skip the cutscene. So even without the speedrun trick.
Yeah, Scipio key in hand, now still getting the rest of the checks in the library. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Why do you think he's going in?
Sorry.
Yeah, why do you think Skippy's going into West Garden here?
That's a really good question. This is time loss I wouldn't have expected, actually. Again, unless there was a hint, which maybe there was. The hit foxes have come up and gone down very quickly. So I haven't necessarily been able to tell what they were hinting at.
Yeah,
But
this is
he
really
might be-
interesting.
We know it's not the sword, but maybe he got a hint as to the dagger's location. Because
Yeah,
that's the
there's
only
never-
thing. Dagger or shield is the only thing I can think of that would be worth spending the extra time right now.
I wonder if he's just concerned about his ability to fight the air without the dagger.
I suspect that's it. Is just not confident in taking the air without some extra toys, which I fully understand. I have banged my head against the air for 20 minutes at a time because I didn't really have the tools to finish that fight. And so, you know, going to fill out your inventory and give you a little bit of a leg up there. As I absolutely respect that decision. I'm just surprised.
Yeah, it's weird. It's hard to know what to do here because with the ability, I mean, because Silent's doing the same thing.
Oh yeah, there it is. There's the dagger.
Wow. Okay.
So he
So
must
he
have
knew what he
gotten-
was after. Yeah.
He must have gotten a hint for the dagger, knowing that it was in West Garden. Which, at that point, yeah, all right, I respect that. Because, you know, if you think you're going to fail your first shot at the air, then by all means, take the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes to go get that dagger and come back. Because that'll save you more time than multiple attempts.
This is so wild. They both know they're going after something. See, I would have just gone right for the air and taken my chances, but
Right.
one of the things about Tunic is the game kind of tricks you into thinking you have gone out of your way to beef up, right? Whereas I think the fight is designed to essentially assume that you are at almost max upgrades. Even at full attack, the fight is very difficult.
Oh yeah, Silent found the dagger and immediately warped back. He's doing the exact same thing that Scipio has. There must have been a ghost hint for it.
Yeah, the Hero's Grave in West Garden says West Garden.
Yes, that too.
Yeah, maybe that's what he was looking for. I'm very
So now
interested to
now
talk
can
to them
see-
about this.
Yeah, now you can see the power of it though. Is the wand and the dagger combine together to shoot an ice shot, which will freeze enemies as if you would use the dagger on its own. And this allows you to get the air into a very consistent pattern. You can freeze him, you'll get 3 hits, you'll get knocked back, and then the air will always do the same 2 attacks to follow that up, a dash and then another dash. And then you have time to attack him and then freeze him again.
You
And
know,
can see
I
Scipio
don't
following this pattern
know.
exactly.
I think this is something interesting. Skippy is not a speedrunner and may not know the finesse to how to keep the air in a combo. You have to wait a little bit after your second hit when she's frozen to refreeze. And you know what Silent has is so even though Skippy is now into phase 2, Silent has this down. This is the speedrunner's bread and butter. Almost every category ends with this fight. Oh boy.
Oh, this is so close.
This is
Not only Silent has it down, Silent has the orange arrow ring.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I said RTSR, but that's the Dark Souls reference. It is indeed called the Orange Barrel Ring in Tunic. Yes.
Yeah, so he has the pattern better. Scipio is doing this in a way that is still consistent, but is slower because he's not used to the speedrun strat. But like,
Oh, this is crazy. Folks, you could not ask for a closer fight here. Oh, Skippy picked it up. I think he's figured out the cadence here. And that's it.
that's it. 103 for Scipio, and we're gonna see like a 103.15 for Silent.
Y'all.
103.15 for Silent. 15 seconds between the two of them. Oh my god.
Oh, y'all, there's never gonna be a better race of this game. Like,
incredible.
Yeah, now you'll see the in-game times differ quite a bit, but we don't use the in-game times because load times can vary depending on the areas you go to and the speed of your computer, etc. So, don't pay attention to those. We just need that on to run speedrun time or speedrun mode. But yes, GG's to both runners. What an absolute pleasure of a run to witness.
Can I force Silent to undeafen?
You can unsilent Silent. I don't know. You can try.
I'll just put it in the race time room. I'm sure he'll come out eventually. But both of you, we have some questions for you two.
Yes.
I was dead in East Forest. It was embarrassing. I didn't like that.
I am surprised that we were 17 seconds apart.
I will summarize the run for you in this analogy. It was like a sine wave. One of you went west, one of you went east, and then you flopped. And then one of you went to the well and one went to Atoll, and then you flopped. And then one went for the Laurel's Hint and to Quarry, and then the other followed. And then you both went to the Red Hint. Then you both went to the library. Then you both went to the swamp. Like it didn't quite look like that but because you both diverged quite a bit, but then would always kind of come back to the same point periodically. It was quite the show.
Yeah, a hell of a run. Wow.
Wow. I was watching the race time room while I was fighting the air, and then I saw it pop up that Skippy had finished, and I just screamed. I was like, "What?"
I know.
Oh, man.
15 seconds. That was incredible.
That's
Absolutely
crazy.
Incredible. So let's talk about routing. I saw that you guys got the East Forest clue for your first steps. So I think Silent, correct me if I'm wrong. You don't usually go to East Forest that early. Did that mean that you kind of went there earlier in order to follow up on the clue?
Yeah, I got the hint, and I was like, okay. Usually I just go to West Overworld, but I saw that the hint was the first hint was Forest, so I just booked it straight there, basically.
And then we didn't quite catch it on the stream. What was the hero's path clue in the Forest Grave?
Bottom of the well. That's why I went there afterwards.
Okay.
I died repeatedly there. I didn't actually get that hint.
Oh,
Okay,
that explains
that's
a lot.
why.
That explains a lot.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
So
What
yeah,
a hint-
Silent,
what a
you
hint
headed
that
to
was
the bottom of
for
the
the
well
well.
immediately afterwards, and Scipio headed towards Atoll.
I see. Yeah.
I going for that Death Stone, which was in an ore-blocked chest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that on my radar, but I didn't go there straight away. But I went there after I got Laurel, so I was able to get that.
Oh, was
Okay.
there a ghost like a Deathstone clue?
Yeah.
I guess it was a ghost that just said it.
It was the Death Stone and the Stamina Relic were both in Frog's domain, so I had it in mind to go there at some point. I don't think anything else was really there, but those are pretty good. Like I used the torch a couple times to get back to Overworld because that item is ridiculously broken.
Sure.
Okay, I have a very important question for the end of the run. Both of you, when you got the third key, were not perfectly ready for the air fight, but could have competently performed the air fight. But you both continued to seek. What was your mindset there? We know you eventually found the dagger each, but what were you thinking?
I was thinking Health Relic or Dagger, where I was not going to have a good time there. It was going to be really, really embarrassing.
I saw that I had 1,500 money, and I was like, I could go buy like 10 lures and just go fight the air, but I didn't want to take that risk, and I didn't. I mean, honestly, I had no idea what the status of the race was at that point, so I just went as fast as I could to the other two hints. And luckily, the dagger was right next to the hint in West Garden, telling me that the dagger was in West Garden.
You both found that within maybe 30 seconds of each other.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, because then as soon as I got that, I was like, oh, I gotta go. Like it's now or never.
I was just going to the statue. I was just going to pick up chests on the way. And
yeah. See what
I
happened.
didn't make it there.
Well, I was going through Dark Tomb at the start of the run because I was gonna go get the hint in West Garden and then just like go back to Overworld, like just Death Orb or something. But I died getting the lever in Dark Tomb and I just never went back. So I would have had Dagger like probably a lot earlier, and that probably would have changed things. But
Yeah, I tried doing Lantern this twice. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
I found Lantern luckily because I was gonna skip the room that I was in. It was in Old House behind the cross door, and I was going to skip it. I was gonna skip it, but I was like, I might as well.
Yep, it's so skippable. It's
Yeah.
I mean, true to your name, Skippy.
Skipping thing.
But you know what probably made the difference in this race? I'm sad to say, Silent, is the 4 skulls. It gave you RTSR, which did help you close the gap ridiculously fast. But when you started, I think you started the air fight when Skippy went into phase 2.
Dang. Yeah.
But Skippy, not being a speedrunner, was not as practiced, I'd say, at the freeze tech.
Yeah, so
Right,
I was doing it my way. My way is slower, but way more mana efficient.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes. So it was like I couldn't tell who was gonna finish first because I knew you had the quick strat down silent, but Skippy was so far ahead, and that 17 seconds was just the air fight.
I got the hint for RTSR, and I was like, I have to go there anyways. I might as well get it because it could end up being useful. And I think I wasted time in like Quarry, like a little bit, like halfway through the run. I probably didn't need to be there for 7 minutes, but I guess I was.
That is exactly what happened in our last race too.
Yeah.
So you learned
I
the
was
wrong
like,
lesson
I was like, I can warp from here to its hole, and I was like, but there's these checks I could just get them really quick.
Yeah, it's too tempting. Once you have the lure or the laurels and you're right there, and there's 30 checks, it's like I don't want to leave. I'm gonna look like an idiot if there's something here that I missed. But
I want to say that was a notable difference between Scipio and Silent's overall strategy. Is Silent, you were more thorough in a lot of places, kind of going for more checks that maybe you needed, maybe you didn't need, and Scipio was absolutely happy to just let chests lie. Scipio didn't go to Lower Forest, a bunch of stuff like that. Silent, kind of in a place to get something, and then as long as there's checks there, you might as well get the checks, and 15 seconds was apparently the difference.
yeah. Like, we knew, obviously, from our perspective, that Silent was a decent bit ahead. I think had grabbed the patrol cave, which, surprisingly, neither person checked. I think that's pretty funny.
So close to it, and I was like, oh, there's gotta be nothing. So I just left. I should have seen the top of the mountain laurels coming, but
our eyes rolled into the back of our head.
Oh yeah, same. I was really debating just like messaging you on Telegram and be like, God damn it.
I specifically told Samson, I was like, don't give us any top of the mountain laurel seeds, and he gave me like the eyeballs emoji, and I was like, you better not.
In the chat.
Okay, I want you to know that we got 3. We were given 3 vetted seeds, and the runners picked the one they wanted. They didn't know what it was, but they had a 2 in 3 chance of not putting it at the top of the mountain.
Samson recommended that one.
We were recommending.
Okay.
I'm wondering if all 3
details.
were all top of the mountain laurels. Like, how much effort did Samson put into finding these seeds?
We practiced the other one that we didn't pick.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well.
I won that one by like 15 minutes.
Details. I do want to say that it was almost like in the last third of the run, Skippy, that you knew you were behind. I don't know how to describe it, but we thought we were heading.
I was 100% sure I was behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
No,
what were you? What was
because
your
the
thinking?
time
I mean,
was
what were
wasting.
you? How did you reason that you were behind?
And I died several times in very dumb ways. So there was no way I was not behind.
That's so interesting though, because your deaths, I don't think contributed. Like, I don't think that was the principal, divergence in your runs. It was just decision making, or like it was just where you happened to go when, right? Just getting that hint in the hero's grave. I guess that the deaths did kind of contribute to that, but
I have a
okay.
quick question for
I
you
guess-
guys.
yep.
If the chat wanted to find this randomizer and play it for themselves, where can they find it?
And we put links in chat. I guess so.
No,
No, that was absolutely modded. That was modded out.
Okay.
So
Well,
Say it out loud, one of our
rando.tunic.run?
yes. Rando.tunic.run.
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 You heard it here, chat. Rando.tunic.run.
Or
and
join
also
the
the
Tunic Speedrun
Tunic
Discord.
Speedrun Discord, as I think Ragnar just posted the link to. Or Stream Elements posted the link. Somebody did it.
Yep, we have a tight collaboration between the Speed and Rando communities because we're all kind of a member of that collectively. So we don't have like a separate Discord or set of resources or something between the two. So we just have one Discord. If you join, you can learn about Speed Tech or Randomizer. We have a role that you can join to be alerted for races that we do. And I'm saying things that every Randomizer player already knows exists. Listen, we're a small community. We're just getting started with learning this stuff. Let us play. But the hybrid of that is that we do, in fact, have a speedrun.com presence for the Tunic Randomizer. So if you want to like dabble in leaderboards and speedrunning and grinding away at something, but you don't want to adapt like the rough tricks of the base game speedrun, you could run some seeds and post them to speedrun.com with the randomizer. So lots of options for any would-be Tunic players.
Well, I think that is it for me. Rad, any final thoughts?
Wait, I thought you were doing the next commentary.
Well, it for me for Tunic. I am actually going to be doing some commentary for the upcoming Time Spinner run. So if you've liked the sound of my voice, stick around.
Yeah, for the next run, it's Jim the Mortal. So it's just slightly different. No, I'll say, it's a small community. I think one of the benefits you get out of a small community for a game like this is that the communication is not overwhelming, and people are more willing to give you personal time to teach, to help you troubleshoot, to do a friendly race or something like that. So Tunic is an awesome game. Jim is an awesome commentator. Silent built an awesome mod. Scipio extended that mod in an awesome way. All really awesome people, I think, is clear. And if you are interested in Tunic, I think you should drop by and give it a shot. It's also on Game Pass, so if you just want to play the game casually, you might be able to do it without spending $1.
And also, Rad is a great leader of the community, I guess.
Oh, please don't call me that.
I'm going to call you that.
Chaperone?
Chaperone, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Let's
any
just
better.
say intrinsic to the community. Rad, you've done a lot for the
He's
community
the
and a lot
CEO of
helping out.
Tunic.
Yeah.
Bring all your permission slips or you cannot get a hot fudge sundae at the end of the field trip.
He invented boxes.
And if chat wanted to follow you along in your Twitch exploits, where can they find each of you?
Oh gosh, right here. Click my name in chat here.
Yeah, same for me. I am Jim the Eternal in all of the places.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was an awesome showcase. Really, really eye-opening. I've never really seen Tunic myself, but the pleasure watching that race was awesome.
All right, well, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure. What a race.
Yeah, what a race. Any final shout-outs? Scipio, Silent?
Shout out to Silent and Rad and Jim, I guess. I don't have anything.
Shout out to Scipio and Rad and Jim and Tunic and the Tunic Randomizer. Go play both of those.
Absolutely.
If you haven't played Tunic, I'm sorry that we spoiled a lot of things for you.
You'd be surprised how much will be eye-opening and shocking when this is one of those games you watch people play and you're like, great, easy, and you pick it up and you're like, uh-oh. So you're in for many hours of fun.
All right, I think we are, at this point, almost eating into Time Spinner's time, so...
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Yeah, a quick thank you to the FFR community for hosting this marathon and allowing us a spot here.